Chapter 1. The Shadow and the Scent. The smell of bleach was Aria's only companion. It was a sharp, angry scent. A smell that burned her nose and clung to the rough wool of her tunic. It was better than the other smells, the cloying, sweet perfume of the high-ranking females, or the sour tang of pity from the other servants. Bleach was clean. It was empty. Just like her. Her bucket sloshed, the gray water kissing the rim. She pushed the heavy oak bucket and the squeaking cart down the grand hall, keeping her eyes glued to the marble floor. Don't look up. Don't be seen. Don't exist. It was a mantra, a prayer she'd whispered every day for 368 days. Ever since her rejection. Her world had shrunk to the space of a cleaning bucket. Her hands were raw, the skin split at the knuckles from lye soap. This was her life because she had dared to hope. Because she had believed in the moon goddess, in fated mates, in love. What a joke. The goddess hadn't just been silent, she'd been cruel. A ripple of laughter echoed from the landing above. Aria's shoulders tensed. She knew that laugh. It was high and light like tiny, cruel bells. Alara. Her stepsister. And the deep, confident chuckle that followed. Marcus. Her former mate. The beta who had stood before the entire pack, pointed at Aria, and said the words that had destroyed her. I, Marcus Rain, reject you, Aria. You are wolfless. You are nothing. They descended the stairs, their arms linked. Alara, radiant in crimson velvet, paused at the bottom, pretending to spot Aria for the first time. Oh, she chirped, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Still scrubbing, Aria? I swear, the dirt just clings to this hall. Marcus just smirked. He looked right through Aria, his eyes cold. He didn't see a person. He saw a broken tool. A thing. Aria dipped her head lower, her dirty blonde hair falling like a curtain. Don't react. Don't speak. Don't give them the satisfaction. Whoops. Alara said, making a tiny O shape with her painted mouth. Her velvet-slippered foot accidentally kicked the side of Aria's bucket. Gray, sudsy water flooded the pristine white marble. It splashed over Aria's worn boots, soaking her hem. Aria froze. The hot, prickling sting of shame burned behind her eyes. Don't cry. Don't. Oh, goodness. What a mess, Alara asked. You'd better clean that up, girl. Before the king returns. I hear he detests filth. Marcus pulled Alara closer. Come, my love. Some things just belong on their knees. It's their natural position. Their laughter followed them out of the hall, leaving Aria alone, kneeling in a puddle of her own failure. Her wolf, the one Marcus claimed was gone, whimpered. It wasn't gone. It was just broken. Caged inside her, too weak and too terrified to show itself. She remembered, just once, months ago, she'd tried to defend herself when another servant stole her food. Alara had seen. Aria had spent 2 nights in the ice-cold cellar for showing aggression. Silence was survival. Invisibility was her shield. She reached for her rags, her hands shaking. Filth. That's what I am. Hurry up, girl. Aria flinched. It was Merta, the head housekeeper. Get that cleaned. And then the West Wing corridors. Now. As Merta bustled away, 2 younger maids hurried past, carrying heavy linens. They didn't offer to help. They just whispered, their voices frantic. Did you hear? One breathed. Is it true? Yes. Garrett saw him at the gates. The Alpha King, he's back. Kael Drax is back. Aria's blood didn't just run cold. It stopped. The king. The monster from the stories. The alpha of alphas who ruled all the packs in the territory. The wolf who, according to rumor, was more beast than man. He hadn't been seen at the central pack house in 6 months, away on the blood moon hunt in the savage northern lands. Alara's words echoed. I hear he detests filth. A new kind of fear, sharper and colder than the shame, gripped her. The king's return meant disruption. It meant chaos. And in chaos, the invisible girls, the broken things, they were the first to be crushed. She just had to finish her shift, get back to her tiny cot in the servant's attic, and pray he never, ever, saw her. Chapter 2. The Spill and the Stillness. She was running. Well, not running. A fast, shuffling glide that was the closest a servant was allowed to get to panic. Ilara's accident had put her horribly behind schedule. The West Wing was the king's territory. It had to be spotless. He was back. The air in the entire estate felt different. Tense. Charged. Like the moment before lightning strikes. Aria pushed her rickety cart, the wheels wobbling and squeaking. Stupid, stupid, stupid wheel. She rounded the corner from the kitchens, her head down, focused on the sloshing bucket, and slammed hard into a wall. Except the wall was warm. And breathing. Aria stumbled back, a small cry escaping her. The cart crashed into the stone wall. The bucket tipped. This time, it wasn't just a splash. The entire contents, filthy water, suds, and grime, arced through the air. It all seemed to happen in slow motion. The water hit its target. A pair of immaculate, military-grade black leather boots. It soaked the hem of fine black trousers, clinging to the powerful muscles of the man's legs. Silence. A heavy, absolute, suffocating silence. Aria didn't look up. She couldn't. Her entire life just ended. This wasn't Ilara. This wasn't a beta. The power rolling off this person was crushing. It was an ocean of dominance, and she was a single drop of rain. Two guards, flanking the man, made choking sounds. One of them hissed, "Goddess, save us." Aria fell. She didn't kneel. She collapsed to the floor, her hands scrambling for the racks. "I'm sorry. I didn't see. Please, Alpha, please." She was babbling, shaking so hard her teeth rattled. This was it. Banishment. Or her head. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the blow. But the blow didn't come. There was no shout. No growl. Just stillness. And a scent. It cut through the stench of bleach and dirty water. It was incredible. It wasn't cologne. It was ozone. Like the air after a lightning strike. It was the deep, wild smell of a snow-covered pine forest. And something else. Something hot, metallic, and primal. Like a forge. A large, scarred hand entered her vision. It hovered in the air. Palm up. It wasn't offering to help her. It was a command. Trembling, Aria placed her small, chapped hand into his. His skin was rough. Hot. Like holding a burning coal. He didn't yank her up. He just pulled. Effortlessly. She was on her feet, swaying, before she could even register it. And then, she made the mistake of looking up. The rumors were wrong. They called him a monster. A beast. He wasn't. He was beautiful. But in a terrifying way. Like a storm is beautiful. He was huge. Taller than any wolf she'd ever seen, his shoulders so broad they blocked the light from the corridor window. His black hair was a little long, brushing the collar of his black shirt. A fresh, angry red scar cut right through his left eyebrow, making him look permanently dangerous. But it was his eyes that held her. They weren't just dark. They were black, rimmed with a startling, impossible ring of pure, glowing silver. He was staring at her. But not like Marcus. Not like Ilara. He wasn't looking through her. He was seeing her. Aria's breath hitched. His head tilted. Just slightly. Like a wolf tracking a sound. His nostrils flared. Once. His silver-ringed eyes narrowed. They dropped from her face, to the pulse flickering at the base of her throat. Aria felt a sudden, bizarre jolt. A warmth, deep in her belly. Her broken, dormant wolf, it stirred. It lifted its head from its paws. Confused. The king said nothing. He just breathed. Inhaling. As if he was tasting the air around her. He wasn't looking at her like she was filth. He wasn't looking at her like she was a servant. He was looking at her like she was prey. Or something else entirely. Something he hadn't expected. Something he couldn't understand. One of his guards cleared his throat. "Alpha King Drax, the council is waiting." Kael Drax didn't move. His silver gaze locked on hers. His voice, when it finally came, wasn't a shout. It was a low, gravelly rumble that vibrated right through her bones. "What is your name?" No one had asked her that in a year. Aria, Alpha, she whispered, her voice cracking. "Aria." He said it was slow, tasting the name. His eyes were intense, possessive, and confused. He finally tore his gaze away, stepping around her, his wet boots silent on the stone. The guards scrambled to follow. Aria stood there, frozen, drenched in her own failure, yet her skin was burning where he'd looked at her. Her hand still tingled from his touch. She was left alone in the corridor, his impossible scent, that storm and forest and fire, searing itself into her memory. Chapter 3. The King's Decree. After that paralyzing encounter, Aria waited for the end. She hid in the servants' laundry, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She expected an enforcer's heavy fist on the door. She expected to be dragged to the whipping post. Because she had touched the king. Because she had soiled him. The summons came 3 hours later. It wasn't an enforcer. It was Lyra, the king's beta, a tall, severe woman with eyes like chips of ice. She found Aria scrubbing linens, her knuckles bleeding into the suds. You, Aria. Lyra's voice permitted no argument. Stop that. Aria stood, dripping, trembling. Yes, beta Lyra. The Alpha King. Lyra paused, and her expression was strange, unreadable. He was displeased by the state of the West Wing corridors. He finds the standards of cleanliness lacking. Aria's stomach dropped. Here it comes. He has personally assigned you to clean his private chambers. Aria's head snapped up. What? The word was out before she could stop it. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You will report to his wing. At sundown. Every day. You will clean his rooms. You will touch nothing that is not a surface. You will report only to him. Am I understood? His private chambers? Aria whispered. This wasn't a punishment. This was something else. Something worse. No one went to the king's chambers. Not since the queen had died years ago. The rumors. Ilara and the others whispered to them. That the king was cursed. That his wolf was too wild, too dominant, and that he suffered a private illness that made him lock himself away. They said he was unstable. This was a trap. Yes, Alpha, Aria breathed, her mind racing. He's testing me. He wants to see if I'll steal. He wants an excuse to. Lyra just gave her a sharp nod. Sundown. Don't be late. At sundown, Aria felt like she was walking to the gallows. The guards at the top of the tower stairs. They looked at her with pity. That was almost worse than the fear. The king's wing was silent. Dark woods, rich carpets that muffled her footsteps. It smelled of him. That storm and pine scent. It was everywhere. It made her skin tingle. Lyra opened the massive oak door. He is on council. Do not touch his desk. Do not touch his bed. Dust. Mop. Leave. She shut the door, leaving Aria alone. The room was not what she expected. It was huge, yes, but it was Spartan. Empty. The room of a soldier. A massive bed, the furs thrown back in a tangle. A heavy desk covered in maps, with daggers pinning them down. A rack of weapons. And one entire wall was a single, massive window, looking out over the entire, moonlit territory. It was the room of a man who never slept. A man who was always watching. She got to work. Her hands moved on autopilot. Dusting the shelves, empty, save for one old, leather-bound book. Mopping the wide wooden planks. She was so focused, so terrified, she didn't hear him. The air changed. The temperature dropped. The scent of ozone became overwhelming. Aria flinched, spinning around. He was there. Kael Drax. Standing in the doorway, watching her. He was as silent as a shadow. She immediately dropped into a curtsy. Alpha. I'm almost finished. He didn't move. He didn't tell her to continue. He just watched. His silver-ringed eyes tracked her. You missed a spot, he said. His voice was quiet. Aria's cheeks burned. She looked. By the leg of the desk, a small smudge. She scurried over, her rag in hand, and scrubbed. She was on her knees, trapped between the desk and the wall. They said you were broken. The words, so soft, made her freeze. She kept her head down. Silence. Silence is safe. Your former mate. Marcus, the king continued, his voice still conversational. He walked into the room, his boots silent on the wood. He stopped right behind her. She could feel the heat coming off him. He said your wolf was gone. He said you were mute. He was so close. Too close. He lied. Aria's breath caught. He moved, and suddenly he was in front of her, blocking her escape. He crouched down. On her level. No alpha ever did that. It was a predator's move. She was forced to look at him. His eyes, they were burning. You are not mute, he whispered. And your wolf is not gone. He tilted his head, that same predatory curiosity from the hallway. It's just hiding, isn't it? He was too close. His scent was making her dizzy. He leaned in. Aria's entire body went rigid. No. He didn't touch her. He just inhaled. Deeply. His nose hovered right at the sensitive skin of her throat. Where a mate's mark should be. A jolt, white-hot and sharp, shot through her. It wasn't fear. It was fire. Her broken, pathetic wolf surged inside her, howling, clawing to get out. Aria trembled, a small, choked sound leaving her lips. A muscle in the king's jaw jumped. His hands, resting on his knees, clenched into white-knuckled fists. He was fighting something. Hard. He pulled back, just an inch. His silver eyes were wild. Why? He rasped, his voice strained. Why do you smell like mine? He said it like an accusation. Like she had stolen something. Like he was furious and terrified. Aria couldn't speak. She just shook her head, tears of sheer, confused terror welling in her eyes. Kael Drax stood up abruptly, turning his back to her. He looked out the massive window. You will continue to clean my rooms. Every day. At this exact hour. His voice was hard again. The king's voice. And you will not speak to anyone else. Do you understand me, Aria? A cage. It wasn't a punishment. It was a cage. He was hiding her. Yes, Alpha, she whispered. Get out. She scrambled to her feet, grabbing her bucket, and fled. The door clicked shut behind her, the sound as final as a cell door locking. Aria ran down the hall, her hand pressed to her throat. It wasn't his touch she felt. It was his breath. And she was trapped in the den of a predator who had just looked at her like she was everything. Chapter 4. The Spark in the Dark. The second time was harder. The first time, that was shocking. A blur of fear and a strange, dizzying scent. But this time, Aria knew. She stood outside the massive oak doors to his wing. Her hand was raised to knock. It was shaking. Her knuckles, they weren't split and bleeding anymore. Just 2 days in that small, clean room, with real soap, and her hands looked like hands. But they burned. Not with bleach. They burned where he had looked at her. Why do you smell like mine? The question had haunted her. It followed her from the laundry, to her new room, and into her nightmares. It was a question that made her broken wolf pace. She finally knocked. A soft, tiny rap. Enter. His voice was different. Not the low, gravelly rumble from the hallway. It was strained. Tight. Like a wire pulled too thin. Aria pushed the heavy door open. The room was dark. The sun was setting, painting the sky in blood red and bruises. But he hadn't lit any lamps. The massive window, it was just a black mirror reflecting the room. And he was there. He wasn't standing. He was sitting in a heavy, carved chair, his back to the door. He was just a silhouette. A block of shadow and power. Alpha, she whispered. Just clean, he ground out. His voice was rough. Like he'd swallowed gravel. Aria's fear was suddenly mixed with something else. Confusion. He sounded sick. She grabbed her bucket and rags. She started on the far side of the room. As far from him as possible. The floors. Dusting the empty shelves. Don't look at him. Don't breathe. Don't exist. But the silence was loud. The only sounds were the slosh of her water and his breathing. It was too fast. And too shallow. She risked a glance. He was leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. His head was in his hands. He wasn't wearing his formal tunic. Just a simple, loose black shirt. And it was damp. A faint sheen of sweat covered his neck. He was in pain. Aria froze. The stories. The rumors. The king's illness. The curse. They said it was why he was so savage. Why he had no queen. He suddenly twitched. A violent, full-body shudder. A low, pained grunt was ripped from his chest. Aria took an involuntary step back. She knocked over a small, empty cup on a side table. It clattered to the wooden floor. Kael's head snapped up. He turned. And his eyes, in the gloom, they were glowing. The silver rings around his pupils, they were burning. I'm sorry, Alpha. It's. He tried to stand. He put a hand on the arm of the chair and winced. His knuckles were white. He was fighting. Hard. It's nothing. Clean the spill. He looked awful. Pale. His black hair was stuck to his forehead. He looked vulnerable. And that was terrifying. Aria scurried forward. She knelt to pick up the cup. It had rolled near his feet. She was so close, she could feel the heat radiating from him. It was like a furnace. She started. Are you? Well, Alpha. Stupid. You don't ask the king that. He didn't answer. He just stared at her. His gaze was so heavy. It wasn't just him looking. It was his wolf. Looking out of his eyes. She grabbed the cup. As she started to rise, he moved. His hand shot out. He wasn't grabbing for her. He was reaching. Like a man drowning. Maybe he was falling. Maybe he was reaching for the table. But he found her. His fingers, large, calloused, and burning hot, brushed the back of her hand. Zap. It wasn't a spark. It was lightning. Aria's vision went white. A scream, not her own, filled her head. Her wolf, her broken, silent wolf, roared. It was a feeling. A taste. A sound. Pine. Storm. Fire. Mate. She was ripped from her own body. She saw, for a split second, a giant, black wolf. Silver eyes. It was turning, looking at her. She cried out, falling back. Kael roared too. He ripped his hand back like he'd been burned. He stumbled to his feet, knocking the heavy chair over. Crash. Grara. It wasn't a word. It was a snarl. Of agony. Of need. His eyes, they weren't silver-ringed anymore. They were solid black. The beast was there. Mine, he choked out. The word, it hit her. It wasn't a claim. It was pain. Like the word was being torn from him against his will. He clutched his head, his whole body shaking. Leave, he bellowed. His voice cracked. Get out. Now. Aria didn't need to be told twice. She scrambled, crawling backward like a crab. She left the bucket. She left the rag. She left the cup. She ran. She slammed the door and fled down the tower steps. She didn't stop until she was back in her tiny, safe attic room. She collapsed against the door, her whole body shaking. Her hand, it was burning. It was tingling. And her wolf, silent for one whole year. It was purring. Chapter 5, The Scent of Possession. She hid. For one full day, she hid. She didn't leave her tiny attic room. She told herself she was sick. She told herself Merta would find a replacement. But she wasn't sick. She was alive. Her hand tingled. The place his skin had touched hers. It felt marked. Mine. The word echoed. The pain in his voice. The way he looked at her. Her wolf, awakened and furious, paced the cage of her mind. It was hungry. It wanted him. No. Aria whispered to the empty room. She hugged her knees. No. It's a trick. He's like Marcus. He's a king. He's playing with me. But Marcus had never made her wolf sing. Marcus's touch had been cold. Kael's touch, it was fire. Why do you smell like mine? Because I am. The answer screamed from her wolf. Aria stuffed her fist in her mouth to stifle a sob. She was going crazy. This was worse than being invisible. This was a new kind of hell. She had to go back. Sundown. If she didn't, that would be an insult. That would get her banished. Or killed. She walked to the king's wing like a woman walking to her execution. I'll just be fast. I'll be silent. I won't look at him. I'll clean and I'll run. She got to the top of the stairs. Beta Lyra was standing there, waiting for her. Aria's blood went cold. Beta. I was just coming. Lyra held up a hand. Her face was strange. That same unreadable look. Confused. Wary. Maybe a little afraid. The king has new orders for you, Lyra said. Her voice was stiff. New orders. You will not be returning to the servants' attic. Aria's stomach plummeted. This was it. Banishment. Please. Beta Lyra. I didn't mean. I'll work harder. Silence. Lyra's voice was sharp, but not cruel. You are to be housed here. In the king's wing. Aria just stared. What? Lyra looked uncomfortable. She gestured to a small, unmarked door just down the hall from the king's. This will be a room. My room? Here. This wasn't a job. This was a prison. No. I can't. My duties. Merta. These are your duties now, Lyra snapped. She opened the door. It was a real room. Not a cot in an attic with 10 other girls. It was small, but it had a real bed with a real quilt. A small window. A wash basin. It was beautiful. The king commands it, Lyra said. She wouldn't meet Aria's eyes. Your presence here, what? Aria whispered. Lyra finally looked at her, and her icy eyes were shaken. It soothes him. Soothes him? Aria thought of him shaking, of the agony in his voice. He looked like he wanted to kill me. Or, she couldn't finish the thought. You will clean his chambers. You will take your meals here. You will not mingle with the other staff. Understood. It was a cage. A soft, pretty cage. He was hiding her. Yes, Beta, Aria breathed. Lyra nodded, her face grim. Good. She turned to leave. As Lyra walked away, Aria saw Merta, the head housekeeper, at the far end of the hall. Merta was watching. Her eyes were narrow, filled with suspicion. Merta watched Lyra walk away, and then her eyes snapped to Aria. Merta didn't say anything. She just stared. And then, she turned and bustled away. Toward the main hall. Toward Alara. Aria's stomach clenched. An open loop of dread. She backed into her new room. It was warm. It was safe. It was the nicest place she had ever been. The door clicked shut. And she was trapped. She could still smell him. Faintly. Even here. Pine and storm. Her wolf, which had been pacing. It laid down. It curled up. And it purred. Chapter 6, marked by the king. 2 days passed. 2 days of the strangest, most terrifying peace Aria had ever known. She was a ghost in the king's wing. She woke in her soft bed. Food, real food, hot and fresh, appeared outside her door. She cleaned Kael's massive, empty chambers. He was never there. He was gone before she woke. He returned long after she was locked, safe, in her room. But his scent, it was everywhere. It clung to the furs on his unmade bed. It rose from the maps on his desk. It was in the very air she breathed. And her wolf, it loved it. Aria felt stronger. Her hands were healed. The chapped, raw skin was soft. She wasn't coughing from the bleach. She wasn't starving. She was terrified. But she was thriving. On the 3rd day, she ran out of lye soap. Lyra had told her, if you require supplies, inform the guard outside the main door. Do not leave. Aria's heart hammered. Do not leave. But she had to. She couldn't clean without soap. She crept to the massive oak doors that separated the king's wing from the world. She eased the door open. Just a crack. Excuse me, guard. She peeked out. And they were there. Waiting. Alara. And Marcus. Aria's blood didn't just run cold. It stopped. Well, Alara's voice was pure poison. Honey-coated venom. Look who's finally come out of the king's bedroom. Marcus just stared. His face was a mask of confusion. And a dark, ugly jealousy. What is this, Aria? He demanded. His voice was low. What games are you playing? He took a step closer. He sniffed the air. His eyes widened. You stink of him. Aria flinched. Stink of him. She tried to back away. Back into the safety of the wing. Don't speak. Don't look. Invisibility is survival. Oh, no you don't, Alara sneered. She was faster. She lunged. Aria wasn't expecting it. Alara's hand fisted in her hair. Yanked. Aria cried out, falling to her knees. Pain exploded on her scalp. You think you're better than me? Alara shrieked, her pretty face twisted with rage. You think you can just replace me? You wolfless, filth. Alara, stop. Marcus said, but he didn't move. She's nothing. Alara raised her hand to strike. Get your hand off her. The voice, it wasn't loud. It wasn't a shout. It was death. Alara froze. Her hand stopped midair. Aria, her eyes blurred with tears, looked up. At the far end of the hall, Kael Drax. He wasn't in his formal clothes. He was in his leathers. Fresh from somewhere. He didn't look sick. He looked powerful. The air around him was vibrating. He stalked toward them. Each footstep was silent. Deadly. Alara let go of Aria's hair, scrambling back. Alpha King. She was. Kael didn't even look at her. Marcus. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. He actually took a step behind Alara. Kael stopped. Right in front of Aria, who was still on her knees. He didn't yell. He didn't posture. He just looked at her. Then, slowly, he crouched. Down on her level. The way he had in his room. The whole hall was watching. Guards. Servants. Everyone. Total silence. His silver-ringed eyes, they were soft. But the wolf inside them was raging. He lifted his hand. The scarred one. And he touched her. He brushed the hair back from her face. His thumb, so rough, so warm, gently swept across her cheek, wiping away a tear. It was a public, intimate, tender touch. Aria's breath hitched. He stood up. Slowly. He turned his head. He looked at Marcus. A growl. It wasn't human. It was low, terrible, and primal. It shook his entire chest. It made the stone walls hum. Kael's voice was a whisper, but it carried. Is under my protection. Marcus was white. Shaking. Then, Kael's gaze slid to Alara. His voice, it was terrifyingly calm. Touch her again. He breathed. And you will lose that hand. Alara made a small, choking sound. Kael smiled. It was not a nice smile. I will have it mounted on my wall. He then did the most insulting, dominant thing he could. He turned his back on them. He looked down at Aria. He held out his hand. This time, she knew what it meant. She placed her small, healed hand into his. He pulled her to her feet. He didn't let go. He placed his other hand on the small of her back, burning her through the thin tunic. Come, he rumbled. He guided her back into his wing. He didn't look back. The heavy door clicked shut, leaving a stunned, silent hall behind them. Aria was shaking. Her life, her old life, it was over. She wasn't invisible anymore. She had just been marked by the king. Chapter 7. The Weight of a Touch. The silence was the strangest part. In the servants' attic, there was never silence. There was always coughing. Or weeping. Or the snide, sharp whispers of the other girls. Here, in her new room, there was nothing. Just the sound of her own breathing. It was a cage. A warm, soft, beautiful cage. Aria looked at her hands. They were smooth. The angry red cracks were gone. The raw flesh had healed. She was healing. Because of him. Because he had locked her away. A heavy knock echoed from her door. It was not Lyra. It was one of the king's personal guards. Aria. The Alpha King requires you. In his study. Her stomach did a cold, slow flip. Not his chambers. Not for cleaning. His study. She followed the guard, her soft boots silent on the rich carpets. The study was one floor below his bedroom. The door was already open. He was there. Kael sat behind a desk so large it looked like it was carved from a single, ancient tree. It was covered in maps. Daggers held down the curling corners. He was writing, his head bent, the black hair falling forward. He didn't look up when she entered. Alpha, she whispered. He just pointed. He gestured to a chair. Not a stool in the corner. A real chair. Right beside his desk. Aria sat. Her body was rigid. She was so close. She could smell him. That scent of pine and lightning. It made her head swim. For 5 minutes, he just wrote. The only sound was the scratch, scratch, scratch of his quill on the thick paper. Aria's heart hammered. This was a new kind of torture. The waiting. Finally, he put the quill down. He looked, not at her, but at her hands. Mend this, he said. He pushed a single object across the desk. It was a glove. One of his. Thick, black leather, meant for writing. The seam along the thumb had split. Aria stared at it. Alpha. I'm a cleaner, she said, her voice small. I don't know how to. You will learn. His voice was flat. Not mean. Just a fact. He pushed a small sewing kit toward her. Mend it. Her hands were shaking. This was a test. She picked up the glove. The leather was thick and warm. From him. She fumbled with the needle, her fingers clumsy. He went back to writing. She sewed. The stitches were crooked. Ugly. She was aware of him. Aware of every breath he took. Aware of the way the muscles in his back moved under his shirt. He was so still. Like a mountain. But he was alive. She could feel the power rolling off him. It was warm. It was comforting. She liked it. The thought shocked her. She pricked her finger. She dropped the glove, putting her stinging finger in her mouth. Kael's head snapped up. His silver eyes locked on her. On her mouth. He stared. For a long, long second. His chest rose. And fell. Aria slowly took her finger out of her mouth. A tiny, perfect bead of red blood welled up. He didn't move. He just watched the blood. His pupils, they grew. The silver rings, they got brighter. I'm sorry. Did you finish? His voice was thick. Raspy. Yes, Alpha. She picked up the glove. The ugly stitches. She held it out to him. He reached for it. Slowly. He didn't take the glove. His large, scarred fingers, they moved past the glove. And they brushed her palm. Zap. That jolt. That lightning. It was stronger this time. It shot up her arm, and straight to her chest. Aria gasped. She dropped the glove. Kael didn't flinch. His hand, it just hovered in the air between them. His eyes, they were burning her. He was breathing faster. He leaned across the desk. Just a little. Did you feel that? He whispered. She couldn't speak. She was paralyzed. She just nodded. A muscle in his jaw jumped. Good. His voice was rough. Satisfied. It means you are not broken. He picked up the glove. He looked at her clumsy stitches. He smiled. A tiny, almost invisible smile. Go, he said. He didn't look at her. He looked at the glove. Come back at sundown. For my chambers. Aria fled. She backed out of the room. She turned. She ran. She burst through the main doors of the wing. She needed air. She needed space. And she ran right into him. Marcus. He was standing there. At the end of the hall. Waiting. His face, it was not confused anymore. It was murderous. His eyes dropped to her hands. To her flushed face. He knew. He knew she hadn't been cleaning. He just stared. His eyes, promising pain. Then he turned, his shoulders stiff, and stalked away. Chapter 8. The Crack in the Armor. Sundown. Aria's dread was a cold, heavy stone in her stomach. She had to go. But she didn't want to. That feeling. That jolt. It scared her more than Marcus. More than Alara. Because she had liked it. She pushed open the door to his chambers. The room was dark. Just like that other time. The bad time. And he was there. By the window. Alpha, she whispered. He didn't answer. Clean. The word was broken. It was not his voice. It was a terrible, pained croak. Aria's heart stopped. She saw him. He was braced against the cold stone of the wall. Both hands. His head was hanging. Alpha. Kael, are you? Do. Your. Job. Each word was a blow. Aria flinched. She grabbed her cleaning bucket. She started mopping the floor. Her hands were shaking. The room was cold. So cold. She could see her breath. A thin, white mist. It was summer. She looked at the window. Frost was spreading from his fingertips. It was crawling across the glass. The curse. The illness. She heard a whimper. A low, agonized sound. It was him. She looked. He was shaking. Violently. His knuckles were white. He was fighting. Just go. He panted. Aria, please run. She took a step back. She should run. Her body was screaming at her to run. But she didn't. She saw, on the floor by his desk, a small, dark blue bottle. It was empty. It had rolled from his hand. It smelled bitter. Like burned herbs. And silver. He groaned. A low, deep sound of pure agony. He slammed his fist into the stone wall. Crack. The stone, it fractured. Aria screamed. He turned. Slowly. His face, it was not his face. It was a mask of sweat and ice. His skin was pale. His lips were blue. And his eyes. The silver, it was swirling, with a deep, dark blackness. What? He hissed. He looked confused. He looked at his own hand, bleeding from hitting the wall. It hurts. He looked lost. This wasn't the king. This wasn't the alpha. This was just Kael. A man in pain. You're bleeding, she whispered. He stared at her. His black and silver eyes, they focused. Aria. He breathed. He stumbled. He fell to one knee. He clutched his chest. She was in the small, private kitchen of the king's wing. She wasn't allowed here. But she was thirsty. Her throat was raw. From fear. She was just pouring a cup of water from a pitcher. Stealing from the king's table now, are we? Aria froze. Merta. The head housekeeper. Her arms were crossed. Her face was sour. Like she'd swallowed bad milk. I was just getting water. Aria stammered. Water, Merta sneered. First it's water. Then it's his jewels. Then it's his bed. No, it's not. Oh, I know what you are, Merta said. She stepped into the kitchen. She blocked the door. You are filth. A wolfless whore. You think, because he protects you, you're special. Please, just let me pass. Elara, she is a lady, Merta spat. Her eyes were crazy. She would have been a true queen. But you ruined it. You, with your tricks. Merta shoved her. Aria stumbled back. Her back hit the cold, stone counter. He will get sick of you. Merta shrieked. And when he does, he will throw you back. Back to the cellars. Back to me. Merta lunged. Her hands, they weren't hands. They were claws. Merta was a wolf. And she was angry. The old Aria, she would have crumpled. She would have taken the beating. But the old Aria was gone. The new Aria, she smelled like pine and storm. She had the king's protection. And her wolf, it was awake. No, the word, it wasn't a scream. It was a growl. It came from deep inside her. Aria didn't just push Merta. She threw her. She grabbed Merta's wrist. Merta was strong. But Aria was fast. There was a snap. Merta shrieked. A high, thin sound. She fell to the floor, cradling her arm. Her wrist, it was bent at a wrong angle. Aria stared. She stared at her own hand. I did that? She was strong. That was impressive. The voice. His voice. Aria's head snapped up. Kael. He was leaning against the kitchen doorway. His arms were crossed. He was not smiling. He looked intrigued. Merta was sobbing on the floor. Alpha, my arm. She attacked me. The creature, she. Kael didn't even look at Merta. He just stared at Aria. He walked slowly into the kitchen. He stepped right over Merta. He walked to Aria. She was still pressed against the counter. He stopped. right in front of her. You broke her wrist, he said. It was not a question. She attacked me. I know, Kael said. His voice, it was warm. I saw. He looked down at Merta. Get out. Merta just stared. Alpha. You are banished, he said, his voice flat. Leave my territory. Now. Merta wailed. She scrambled to her feet, clutching her broken arm, and fled. Silence. It was just them. Aria was breathing hard. Her heart was singing. She wasn't scared. She was thrilled. Kael, he smiled. A real smile. It changed his whole face. You growled, he whispered. He put one hand on the counter. Beside her. He leaned in. He was trapping her. His body, it was right there. She could feel the heat from his chest. He was so close. I do it. Again, he murmured. His voice was rough. His silver eyes, they dropped to her mouth. I knew you were not broken, he breathed. His other hand, it came up. Slowly. He didn't touch her face. He touched her lips. Just one rough fingertip, tracing the shape of her mouth. Aria's whole body flushed. She couldn't breathe. You are magnificent, he whispered. His face, it was inches from hers. His eyes, they were burning. She could feel his breath. Warm, pine, and storm, and desire. The air, it was sizzling. He was going to kiss her. Chapter 10, The Space Between. He was going to kiss her. Aria's breath caught in her throat. His head tilted, his silver eyes focused entirely on her mouth. She could feel the heat radiating from his chest, a solid, living furnace. Her own body swayed toward him, a magnetic pull she had no power to resist. Her wolf, so long silent, was howling in triumph. Yes, finally. Ours. He was just an inch away. Then he flung himself backward. It was not a simple retreat. It was a violent, sudden recoil, as if he had been burned by fire. He stumbled back, his shoulder hitting the stone wall of the kitchen, his breath coming in harsh, pained gasps. Aria's eyes flew open. The world, which had narrowed to a single, perfect point, shattered. Kael was staring at her, his face pale, his eyes wide with a look of terror. He pressed a hand to his own chest, his knuckles white. Alpha, she whispered, the word fragile. The shame was immediate. It was a cold, familiar poison, washing all the warmth from her body. Of course. He's disgusted. I am a cleaner. I am filth. What was I thinking? She ducked her head, her hair falling to hide her burning face. I am so sorry, Alpha. I forgot my place. No. His voice was a roar. It was so sharp, she flinched. But when she dared to look up, his anger was not aimed at her. He was glaring at the wall, at his own hand, at the empty space between them. He looked like he was at war with himself. It is not your place, he growled, the words torn from his throat. He stalked from the kitchen, his rage a tangible thing. It is my curse. Aria just stared, confused. He stopped in the hallway. The bond, he said, his voice strained. The fated pull. It accelerates it. It makes the sickness stronger. He finally turned to her, and his eyes were full of a desperate, caged frustration. I am afraid of hurting you, Aria. Not of touching you. He was scared. Not of her. For her. He took a deep, shuddering breath, forcing himself into a rigid calm. Come with me. He did not wait for an answer. He turned and strode down the hall. Aria, her heart a confusing mix of shame and a strange, fluttering hope, hurried to follow. He did not take her to his chambers or the study. He led her to a room she had never seen, a room with a heavy, carved door. He pushed it open, revealing a library. It was beautiful. Thousands of books lined the walls from the floor to the high, arched ceiling. A warm fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace, and the air smelled of old paper, leather, and him. Sit, he commanded, pointing to a soft, worn leather chair near the fire. She sat, perching on the edge. He did not join her. He began to pace. He walked like a caged wolf, from the door to the tall windows, his hands clenched at his sides. "They told me you could not read," he said, his voice quiet. Aria flinched. "I can. A little. My mother, she taught me before she passed." He nodded, a sharp, quick movement. He stopped his pacing and walked to a high shelf, pulling down a heavy, ancient-looking book. He held it out to her. "What is it?" "Our history," he said. "The history of the first wolves. Of the moon goddess. The stories the packs tell now, they are lies." She took the book, its weight surprising her. She opened it to find pages filled with hand-drawn pictures and careful, elegant script. Kael sat in the chair opposite her, his intensity a physical force. "I need to know you, Aria." Her head snapped up. "Marcus," he growled, the name a curse. "What did he do to you?" Aria's blood ran cold. He didn't." "Do not lie to me," Kael whispered, but his voice carried more threat than a shout. His silver eyes burned into her. "When I get close, you flinch. You wait. You wait for the pain." He saw it. He saw her. He saw the broken parts she hid from the world. Aria's defenses, they just crumbled. A dry, terrible sob ripped from her chest. "I trusted him," she whispered, the tears coming hot and fast. "He was my fated mate. I loved him." She could not stop the words now. "And he hated me." He laughed. "He would laugh when Alara, when she hit me. He told me I was nothing." Kael's face became a mask of stone. But his hands on the arms of the wooden chair, his claws slid out. Shink. They were long, black, and sharp, and they dug deep into the oak, splintering the wood. Aria was too lost in the memory to notice. He told everyone I was wolfless," she cried. "But I wasn't. He knew. He made me hide my wolf. He said she was weak, that I was weak. And then, at the ceremony, he rejected me. In front of everyone. He broke the bond," Kael breathed. His voice was shaking with a terrible, contained rage. "He chose to break you." He understood. He stood up, not with his usual speed, but slowly, as if controlling a great violence. He walked to her. And he knelt. The Alpha King. On his knees. At her feet. "Aria." His voice was raw. He reached out, his large, scarred hand trembling. He placed it on her knee. The touch was solid. Warm. Safe. "No one," he growled, his silver eyes locked on hers, a burning promise, "will ever touch you like that again." It was not a simple promise. It was a vow sealed in blood and shadows. Aria just sobbed, her body shaking with the release of a year's worth of pain. Knock. 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 The sound was violent, shattering the moment. Kael did not move, his hand still on her knee. He just growled, a low, lethal sound. The door burst open. A guard stood there, his face white with terror, his chest heaving. "Alpha," the guard panted. "The north gate. He's gone. Alpha Ragnar, his men, they took him." Kael was on his feet in a blur. "Who?" The kitchen boy Alpha," the guard cried. "Finn. They left this." The guard held out a piece of cloth. It was a rough-spun rag, dark and wet. With blood. Chapter 11. The Price of a Boy. Finn. The name was a punch to Aria's stomach. Not Finn. Not the scrawny, freckle-faced boy with the wild red hair. He was the only one. In that whole, vast, cold estate, he was the only person who had ever been kind. He worked in the kitchens. When Merta's back was turned, he would slip her a bruised apple or a hunk of old bread. He never said much. He just smiled. A quick, shy smile that made her feel human. "No," Aria whispered, her hands flying to her mouth. "Not him. Please." Kael snatched the bloody rag from the guard's hand. He brought it to his face, inhaling deeply. His entire body changed. The man who had knelt at her feet, the man whose hand had been so tender, was gone. In his place was the Alpha King. No, not the king. It was the beast. His eyes, the silver rings, they consumed the black. They were burning, solid, glowing, and inhuman. Where? He growled. The note, Alpha. The guard was shaking, holding out a crumpled piece of parchment. Kael ripped it from his hand. He scanned the words. Aria watched his face. It went completely, terrifyingly still. The rage vanished, replaced by a calm that was far more deadly. This does not concern you, he said. His voice was pure ice. He turned his back on her. Lyra, he bellowed. His beta was there in an instant, appearing as if from the shadows. Alpha. Take her to her room, Kael commanded. Lock the door. Put 4 guards on it. No. The word was a scream. Aria scrambled from the chair. No, Kael, please. What does it say? He took him because of me. Kael ignored her. Get my enforcers, he snarled at Lyra. Meet in the war room. Now. Kael, no. Aria ran. She grabbed his arm, her fingers digging into the hard muscle. You cannot do this. It's my fault. He stopped. He looked at her. Slowly. His face was a mask. Empty. Yes, he whispered. He did. He peeled her fingers from his arm, one by one, as if she were a child. And that is why you will be locked away. You don't understand, she sobbed. Finn, he's my friend. He helped me. He fed me. At that, Kael's eyes narrowed. A dark, ugly emotion crossed his features. Jealousy. He fed you, he repeated, his voice dangerously low. I feed you now, Kael growled. This is Ragnar. Aria shouted, desperate. I know him. From the Blood River Pack. He hates you. Ilara, she talked about him. She bragged that he would challenge you. Kael's head snapped toward her. That got his attention. Ilara. Please, what does the note say? She begged. He looked down at the parchment in his fist, crushing it. He wants a trade. Aria's blood stopped. A trade? He wants you. Her legs gave out. She would have crumpled to the floor, but Kael moved faster than she thought possible. He swooped, one arm catching her, and lifted her. He pulled her against his chest as if she weighed nothing. She was crushed against his solid, unyielding body. She could feel his heart, a frantic, hammering thump. Thump. Thump against her cheek. You are mine, he snarled. It was not a question. It was a fact. He carried her out of the library, his strides long and furious. You are not leaving this wing. He stuck _E_D into her small room and dumped her, not unkindly, on the soft bed. Kael, please, she begged, scrambling to her knees. He said a trade. He'll kill Finn if I don't go. You are not going, he roared. He slammed the heavy oak door. She heard the click of the lock. She heard the heavy thud of boots as the guards took their positions outside. She was a prisoner. She threw herself at the door, beating her fists against the thick wood. Kael, please. Don't do this. Silence. He was gone. Aria slid down the door, her strength gone. She was safe. She was locked away in her soft, warm, beautiful cage. And Finn was going to die. All because of her. Chapter 12. The Hidden Path. She was trapped. The silence of the room was deafening. Safe. That was the word he had used. This was his protection. But safe meant Finn dies. Aria stood up. She began to pace. 4 steps from the door to the window. Turn. 4 steps back. A cage. He had given her a beautiful, gilded cage. Her wolf, it was pacing with her. It was not sad. It was furious. It was a low, simmering rage directed at Ragnar, at Ilara, and at this room. They took the boy. They hurt him. This is our fault. Aria stopped. She looked at her hands. They were not the hands of a victim anymore. They were not the raw, red, bleeding hands of the cleaner. They were smooth. Healed. Strong. They were the hands that had broken Merta's wrist. She remembered Kael's voice. You growled. She remembered his smile. You are magnificent. He had seen her. He had woken her up. He had shown her that she was not broken, and now he had locked her away. For her own good. No, Aria whispered to the empty room. She walked to the wall opposite the bed. It was covered by a large, heavy tapestry. It was old, depicting the first wolves howling at a silver moon. She knew this tapestry. When she was invisible, she had cleaned every room, every corner, every secret. This room had once belonged to a long-dead queen. And Aria, she remembered the draft. Her fingers touched the thick, dusty wool. She pushed. The tapestry swayed, revealing the cold stone wall behind it. She ran her healed hands along the blocks. Cold. Smooth. Smooth. Rough. She pressed her palm against the rougher stone. Nothing. She tried the one next to it. Smooth. Smooth. Click. The stone, it moved. It sank half an inch into the wall. A low, grinding sound, like teeth in stone, echoed in the quiet room. A section of the wall, hidden by the tapestry's edge, slid to the side. Darkness. A gust of cold wind hit her face. It smelled of dust and damp earth and old, forgotten things. A servant's passage. The hidden way. Aria looked back. She saw the soft bed. The warm fire. The safety. Kael, he would be furious. He had given her a direct command. If she did this, he might never trust her again. He might hate her. He might look at her the way Marcus had. She thought of Finn. His quick, shy smile. The apples. She thought of the bloody cloth. This is my fault. She had spent a year being invisible. A year being a victim. Not anymore. Aria took a deep, shuddering breath. She stepped into the darkness. The heavy stone door rumbled and scraped shut behind her. Click. She was alone. In the pitch black. She was terrified. But she was free. She was walking into Ragnar's trap. She was going to the old mill. She was going to save Finn. Chapter 13. The Two-Front War. Lauren's trap was perfect. It was a cold, brilliant piece of strategy, and as the howls of his rogues surrounded the cottage, Aurora felt the last bit of her hope curdle. Kael was a storm trapped in a bottle. He was pacing the small room, his hands clenched, his eyes a burning gold. He planned this, he growled. He planned all of it. My king. Lauren's voice called from outside, smooth and confident. A terrible choice, isn't it? Stay in there and watch your fiancé die, or come out here and die with your harlot. Kael slammed his fist against the cottage wall. He's been working with rogues. All this time. He let the rogues attack the southern border 10 years ago. It was a diversion. To get me out of the way. To break us. And he did, Aurora whispered. She looked at the bed. Celine was gasping, her skin a pale, waxy gray. The silver light, Aurora's wolf, was flickering over her, a parasitic aura that was killing its host. It burns, Celine whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. Lauren's trap was, Aurora realized, even more perfect than he knew. He thought the choice was between Celine and Aurora. But he was wrong. Kael was watching his fiancée die, and he was chained by the bond to a woman who was killing her. His guilt was so profound, so heavy, that it was paralyzing him. He's wrong, Aurora said, her voice cutting through the tension. Kael looked at her. What? He thinks I'm the choice. He thinks this is just about the wolf. She walked to the bed. Kael moved to stop her. What are you doing? The transfer, it's killing her. You're your power, my wolf is killing her, Aurora corrected him, her voice suddenly, shockingly, calm. She is too weak to be a vessel. The transfer is tearing her apart. She looked at Kael, and for the first time, he saw not a victim, but a partner. He thinks my wolf is my only power. He forgot he never knew that I am a healer. This was her point of no return. She was not the broken girl who sold herbs. She was not the harlot in the Alpha's bed. She was Aurora. She placed her hands on Celine's forehead. Aurora, no. Kael yelled, lunging forward. You'll kill her faster. I'm not going to stop the transfer, Aurora said, her eyes closed. She pushed her own power, the cool, silver light of her healing, into the dying girl. I am going to save the vessel. Celine gasped, but this time, it was a breath of relief. The burning, it's cool, Kael stopped, his mouth open in awe. He was watching two forces at war. The raw, parasitic power of the wolf leaving Celine and the gentle, powerful, silver light of Aurora healing her at the same time. Outside, Lauren must have felt the shift in power. The howls turned from taunting to furious. What is this magic? Lauren roared, his voice no longer smooth. No. Attack. Kill them all. Kill the healer first. Chapter 14. The Alpha and the Light. The windows exploded. Glass and wood fragments sprayed into the room. 3, 4, 5 rogues they poured into the tiny cottage. Kael did not hesitate. He did not shout. He did not plan. He became. 1 second, he was a man. The next, he was the Alpha. A massive black wolf, a shadow of fangs and death, met the first rogue in midair, his jaws clamping on its throat. The room descended into chaos. It was a blur of black fur, gray fur, and the sound of snapping bone. Kael was magnificent. He was a force of nature, a true king, defending his Aurora did not move from the bed. She could not. Her hands were pressed to Celine's chest, her body a conduit for the healing light. Celine was her patient. The fight was Kael's. But the fight was uneven. There are too many. Kael roared, his voice a half-human, half-wolf snarl, as he threw one rogue into the fireplace. Lauren wants the healer, another rogue shrieked, his eyes landing on Aurora. He broke past Kael's defense. He leaped not at Kael, but at her. At the bed. Kael roared, but he was too far, tangled with another rogue. Aurora did not have time to think. She did not have time to be a victim. She ripped one hand from Celine's chest and shoved it toward the attacking wolf. No, she screamed. A wave of pure, silver, healing light of force slammed into the rogue. It was not fangs. It was not claws. It was pressure. It was like being hit by a wall of pure energy. The rogue yelped, flying backward, and slammed into the wall. He fell, stunned and confused. Everyone froze. The rogues. Kael. Aurora stared at her own hand, shaking. The fight resumed. But it was different. Kael was fighting with a new fury. A new hope. Another rogue tried to flank him, to attack him from behind. Kael. Aurora screamed. She pushed her power again. The blast of light hit the rogue's legs, knocking him off balance, giving Kael the second he needed to turn and end it. This was their forbidden kiss. It was not of lips. It was of power. They were a unit. He, the alpha of fangs and destruction. She, the alpha of light and preservation. They were, for the first time, a pack. Kael, his fur matted with his own blood and the blood of his enemies, stood back to back with her. He was a wall of black fur, guarding her. And she was a beacon of silver light, guarding him. The remaining rogues were terrified. This was not a broken alpha. And this was not a harlot. She's a witch, one screamed, just before Kael silenced him for good. Chapter 15. The Unbreakable Bond. The last rogue was dead. The cottage was a ruin. Blood glass and the smell of ozone, from Aurora's power. Kael shifted. He was human. He was bleeding from a dozen wounds, panting, covered in filth, but he was alive. He looked at Aurora. The rage was gone. The guilt was quiet. He was just staring at her. A soft sigh. It came from the bed. They both turned. Celine. Her eyes were open. She was smiling. She was no longer gray. Her skin was peaceful. It's beautiful, she whispered, her eyes on Aurora. The last, tiny wisp of silver light, the last bit of Aurora's wolf left Celine's chest. It was not parasitic. It was gentle. It flew across the room, a spark, and sank into Aurora's chest. Celine, she sighed. And her eyes closed. She was at peace. The vessel was empty. For 1 second there was silence. Then Aurora screamed. She collapsed, clutching her neck. The partial mark is burned. Kael roared, clutching his own chest. The bond. The full Alpha Luna bond. It was slamming into place. It was not a gentle connection. It was a flood. It was 10 years of lost time, of lost power, of shared agony flooding them both at once. It was agony. It was ecstasy. Aurora felt everything. Chapter 16. The Silver-Tipped Betrayal. The cottage was a grave. It was a tomb for Celine, for the rogues, and for the 10 years of lies that had festered between them. Kael and Aurora stepped out of the ruined doorway, their hands still joined. The air was cold, the clearing silent. The surviving rogues had vanished back into the woods, called off by their master. He's not gone, Kael said, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. He scanned the trees, his golden eyes sharp, every muscle in his body coiled. The new, whole bond thrummed between them, a live wire of shared power. Aurora could feel his rage, his focus, but she could also feel his fear. Not for himself. For her. I know, Aurora said. Her own voice was different, stronger. Her wolf was awake, a living, breathing presence under her skin, alert and watchful. He's watching. He's waiting. He thinks he's a strategist, Kael growled. He thinks he's smart. He is smart, Aurora corrected him, her grip tightening on his hand. He knew exactly how to break us 10 years ago. He set this trap perfectly. He's not just going to run. A slow, mocking clap echoed from the edge of the clearing. Lauren stepped out from the shadow of a large pine. He was alone. He was not wearing his beta leathers. He was dressed in the black armor of a rogue hunter. His blonde hair was perfect. His smile was smooth. Bravo, Lauren called, his voice dripping with condescending poison. Truly a remarkable performance. The long-lost Luna returns, the vessel dies, and the two broken halves become one. It's almost poetic. Lauren, Kael said. The name was a curse. It's over. Your rogues are dead. You're a traitor, and you will die as one. Will I? Lauren's smile widened. He looked unbothered. You see, Kael, that's always been your problem. You think in terms of fights. Brawls. Who is strongest? You are all wolf. He tapped his temple. I am all mind. You think this was the trap? This was just the stage. He was too calm. Far too calm. Kael, no, Aurora whispered, pulling on his arm. What's wrong, my king? Lauren taunted. You have your mate. You have your full power. What could you possibly be afraid of? Kael took a step, then another. He was walking into the clearing, pulling Aurora with him. I'm not afraid of you, Lauren. I'm going to enjoy this. No, Kael. Aurora hissed, trying to plant her feet. He wants you to come to him. It's a trap. He's right, my little healer, Lauren cooed. Listen to her, Kael. But you won't. Because I know you. I know you have to be the protector. The hero. You have to. Kael let go of Aurora's hand. He launched himself across the clearing. He didn't shift. It was a pure human rage. He was going to tear Lauren apart with his bare hands. Kael. No. Aurora screamed. Lauren, he didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just smiled. And at the very last second he stepped aside. Kael, his momentum unstoppable, his target gone, he ran past Lauren. And he tripped. A thin, almost invisible wire. A silver wire stretched between two trees. Kael roared, but it wasn't a roar of rage. It was pain. As he hit the wire, it triggered the trap. It wasn't just a wire. Dozens of silver-tipped shards blades sprang up from the leaf-covered ground. He fell onto them. He landed hard, on his chest and stomach. No, Aurora whispered. Kael pushed himself up, onto his knees. He looked down. His chest. His stomach. They were impaled. 6 silver shards were buried deep in his torso. The problem with silver, Lauren said, his voice calm, is that it burns. He walked over to Kael, who was on his knees, trembling, trying to pull one of the shards out. But this silver, Lauren said, is special. He kicked Kael hard in the side. Kael fell over, gasping. It's coated, Lauren said, in wolfsbane. No, Aurora breathed. She ran. Kael. Lauren said. He raised a crossbow. It was aimed at Kael's head. Stay back, healer, Lauren commanded. Or he dies. Aurora, she froze. 10 feet away. Kael, he wasn't moving. He was dying. And she couldn't get to him. Chapter 17, The Unleashed Wolf. Lauren stood over Kael, the crossbow leveled, a perfect picture of triumph. This, he said, is where you fail, Kael. Not by my hand, but by hers. Aurora was frozen, her world shrunk to the space of 10 feet. Kael was dying. The man she had just found, the love she had just reclaimed, was bleeding out. And she could not move. What do you want? She whispered, her voice shaking, her hands raised. What do I want? Lauren laughed. I wanted a strong pack. I wanted an alpha who wasn't ruled by his emotions. Kael, he was never the same after you. He was a hollow king. A broken thing. I was fixing the pack. And then you came back. The poison. You're insane, Aurora breathed. I am logical, he snapped. And now, the logic is simple. You are going to watch. He aimed the crossbow. Not at Kael. At her. The bond, he whispered. It works both ways. Doesn't it? He knew. You die and he dies too. He smiled. Goodbye, Luna. He pulled the trigger. TWNG. The bolt it was silver. It flew. Aurora she didn't move. She couldn't. She closed her eyes. Nothing. She opened her eyes. Kael. He was in front of her. He had moved. He had rolled. He was on his knees. And the silver bolt was in his shoulder. He looked at her. His eyes, they were full of love. I won't let him hurt you again. He fell. Face forward. At her feet. Silence. Lauren, he laughed. How noble, he said. How predictable. He dropped the crossbow. Well, that saves me a bolt. He pulled a knife. Now, your turn. He walked toward her. Aurora, she looked down. At Kael. At the blood. At the silver. The bond. It was screaming. Pain. Loss. Agony. Her mate. He was dying. He was dead. No. N-O-O-O. A sound. It ripped out of her. It was not a scream. It was a howl. It was not a human sound. It was Alpha. Lauren, he stopped. His face, it was afraid. Aurora, she looked up. Her eyes go they were not brown. They were not silver. They were gold. Burning wolf gold. You touched him. Her voice. There were two voices. Hers and the wolf's. She shifted. Not into a wolf. But not human. Her nails grew. Into claws. Her teeth were sharpened. You hurt my mate. She moved. She was a blur. Lauren, he tried to raise the knife. She caught his wrist. SNP. He screamed. She hit him. He flew. He hit a tree. He fell. She was on him. She hit him. And hit him. And hit him. It was not healing. It was rage. It was power. It was uncontrolled. She was killing him. And a part of her was enjoying it. She raised her claws for the last time. Kael. A groan. It was soft. But she heard it. She froze. She looked at her hands. They were covered in blood. Lauren's blood. She looked at Lauren. He was broken. Unconscious. But alive. She gasped. She stumbled back. What had she done? She was a monster. Chapter 18. The Poison of the Bond. She scrambled back, falling, crawling away from Lauren's broken body. The monster, she was a monster. The golden, primal rage faded from her eyes, replaced by a cold, human horror. She looked at her hands, her claws her nails caked in Lauren's blood. She was shaking, her whole body convulsing. Kael. The single thought cut through her panic. She ran, stumbling, back to him. He was lying face down, exactly where he had fallen at her feet. The silver bolt was a black, ugly shadow in his shoulder. The silver shards were buried deep in his back, the wolfsbane-laced poison already blackening the skin around the wounds. No, she whispered, her voice hysterical. She grabbed his shoulder to turn him over. Kael, wake up. His body was limp. Dead weight. No, she screamed. I can heal you. I'm a healer. She frantically pushed him onto his back. His face was pale, his lips blue. But he was breathing. Barely. A shallow, hitched gasp. Okay, she cried, relief and panic warring within her. Okay, I can fix this. She placed her hands on his chest, over the deep wounds. She closed her eyes. She reached for the silver light, the power that had saved Celine, the power that had mended his first wound at the cabin. She reached and nothing. There was nothing. No, she whispered. Come on. Please. She pushed. She strained. She tried to summon the cool, moon-bright energy. But all she felt was the other thing. The hot, dark, golden rage of the wolf. The power she had just used to nearly kill Lauren. It was there, boiling under her skin, but it was not healing. It was fury. It was power. It was destruction. No, I don't want that, she sobbed. I want to heal him. But the silver light was gone. It was as if her rage, her wolf's primal, possessive fury had burned it away. Like a fire scorching a garden, her violence had destroyed her healing. She was a monster, just as she had feared. Please, she begged, pressing her bloody hands to his wounds, as if her own blood could save him. Kael, please don't leave me. I just found you. Please. He groaned, a low, agonizing sound. The poison, the silver, it was burning him from the inside out. The bond was a conduit, pouring his agony directly into her. She could feel the poison in her own veins. She could feel his heart slowing. It was her fault. All of it. Because she had returned, Celine was dead. Because she had bonded with him, Lauren had sprung his trap. Because she had lost control, her healing was gone. She was the poison. Her love. Her bond. Her wolf. It was the source of all this pain. Lauren had called her a harlot. He had called her a poison. He was right. As long as she was here, as long as this bond was active, she would be his weakness. She was the target. She was the reason he was dying. If she left. The thought was a new, colder agony. The bond would kill them both if they were separated. That's what he had said. But they were dying anyway. He was dying because of her. What if he was wrong? What if the bonded it would hurt, but if she was gone, maybe the poison would fade. Maybe if she took the wolf, the target, away, Lauren would stop. And Kael could live. It was a desperate, broken, illogical hope. But it was the only hope she had. She looked at his face, so pale. She couldn't leave him. But she had to. She kissed him. His lips. They were cold. I love you, she whispered, her tears falling on his still face. I'm so sorry. She stood up. She turned away from him. She ran. She ran into the woods. She left him to die alone. Or to live without her. She didn't know which was worse. Chapter 19. The Pull of the Chain. Aurora ran. She ran with all the strength in her body, fueled by a decade of pain and a new, sharp, all-consuming terror. She scrambled through the underbrush, branches tearing at her clothes, her face. She did not care. She was a poison. A monster. She had lost control, and in her rage, she had lost her healing. She was the one who had gotten Kael killed. She had to leave. She was the target. If she was gone, the threat would be gone. This was the lie she told herself. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs felt like lead. She collapsed, falling to her knees in a patch of wet leaves, miles from the cottage. She was finally safe. And in the silence, she felt it. The bond. It was not a gentle connection. It was a thick, heavy chain, and it was being pulled taut. She cried out, clutching her chest. It was a physical, tearing agony. It was not just her own pain, it was his. She felt cold. So cold. She felt a spreading numbness. He was dying. She was feeling him die. Her logic, her desperate, broken plan, shattered. Leaving him was not saving him. It was abandoning him. The bond was still there. You're killing us both, a voice whispered in her head. Was it her wolf? Or was it Kael? The chain pulled tighter, a cold, sickening yank in her soul. He's fading. No, she whispered. She had been so stupid. Lauren's lie, that she was the poison, had been his final, most perfect attack. He had made her defeat herself. He had made her run. Her place was not in the woods, hiding. Her place was with him. She looked at her hands, still stained with Lauren's blood. She was a monster. Fine. So be it. If she was a monster, she would be his monster. She tried to summon the silver light one last time. Nothing. Just the hot, golden, furious power that had nearly beaten Lauren to death. It coiled in her stomach, angry, possessive, and furious that she was running away from its mate. She had no healing. All she had was this rage. And Kael was dying. She stood up. I'm coming, she whispered. She turned and ran back, faster than she had ever run in her life, racing the cold, pulling agony of the bond. She was no longer running from him. She was running for him. Chapter 20, The Choice. She burst back into the clearing. It was quiet. Too quiet. Lauren was gone. No. He was stirring. He was 10 feet from where she had left him, crawling, dragging his broken arm, leaving a smear of blood on the leaves. He was trying to get to the crossbow. He saw her. You, he coughed, spitting blood. You stupid bitch. You came back. He was trying to get to his feet. And Kael was still. Too still. He had not moved. He was lying on his back, the silver bolt in his shoulder, the shards in his chest. His skin was gray. Lauren laughed, a wet, choking sound. You came back to watch him die. Aurora was frozen. Kael was dying. Lauren was getting his weapon. If she ran to Kael, Lauren would shoot her. He would if she fought Kael would. The choice was impossible. Lauren, he grabbed the crossbow. He fumbled it. His broken arm. He couldn't load it. He threw it down. He pulled a knife. I will kill you both. He staggered toward her. This was it. Aurora, she looked at Kael. She looked at Lauren. She chose. She did not run to Kael. She ran at Lauren. You hurt him. The golden light it exploded from her. But it wasn't rage. It was control. She didn't touch him. She pushed. With her power. The same power she had used on the rogues. A concussive blast. It hit Lauren. In the chest. He flew. Backward. He slammed into a tree. He slid down. He was out. Cold. Aurora, she didn't look back. She ran to Kael. I'm here, she whispered, falling to her knees beside him. I'm here. I'm so sorry. He didn't answer. His eyes were closed. Chapter 21, The Golden Heart. She put her hands on his chest, over the silver shards. The skin, it was so cold. The black poison it had spread. Kael, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm here. I'm sorry. I was so stupid. Please don't leave me. I just found you. She closed her eyes. She reached. For the silver light. Nothing. It was gone. Just the hot, golden power. No, she sobbed. I can't. I'm not a healer. Not anymore. Then a voice. It was a whisper. Then be my Luna. Kael's eyes. They were open. Just a slit. Kael. It hurts, he gasped. I know. I can't heal you. The light, it's gone. No, he whispered. The silver, it's cold. The wolf's bane, it's cold. I need, he looked at her hands. Fire. He wanted the golden power. But that's rage, she cried. It isn't healing. It is our power, he gasped. It is life. Burn it out, Aurora. Please. She looked at him. She trusted him. This is going to hurt. I trust you. She took a deep breath. She pushed. Not rage. Love. She pushed her love for him into the golden power. It exploded from her hands. It was hot. Violent. Kael screamed. His body arched off the ground. The bond, it screamed. It was agony. Don't stop, he roared. She pushed harder. The golden light, it enveloped him. The silver shards, they glowed red. Then white. They melted. They turned to slag. The black poison, it burned away. Like smoke. And then silence. Kael's body went limp. His heart, it stopped. No, she whispered. No. She pounded his chest. No, Kael. Don't you dare. Don't you dare leave me. She breathed into his mouth. Wake up. A gasp. Kael's eyes flew open. They were gold. He grabbed her. He pulled her down. He kissed her. Hard. Brutal. Possessive. Mine, he gasped. Yours, she cried, kissing him back. They were alive. Lauren, Kael growled, his voice raw. They turned. The clearing. It was empty. Lauren, he was gone. The final confrontation was still coming. Chapter 22, The Fire and the Fong. Kael's kiss was a raw claiming, a desperate affirmation of life in the face of death. Aurora met his intensity, her hands tangling in his hair, her tears of grief and terror turning into tears of relief. The bond between them was no longer a painful chain, it was a roaring, golden river of shared power, and it sang in her blood. He pulled back, his gold eyes blazing with a new, clear light. He looked at his own hands, then at his chest. Where the silver shards had been, there were now only fresh, pink, seared-shut scars. The wolfsbane was gone. The silver was gone. Her golden fire had not just healed him, it had reforged him. How he breathed, his voice raw. Aurora started, but a slow, mocking clap echoed from the edge of the clearing. Lauren. He was leaning against a tree, his face a mask of pale, furious disbelief. His arm was clearly broken, hanging at an odd angle, and he was breathing heavily, but he was alive. Impossible, Lauren whispered, his voice shaking with rage, not fear. The wolfsbane, it should have liquefied your heart. It should have killed you. You miscalculated, Lauren, Kael growled. He got to his feet, using Aurora's shoulder for support. He was weak, but he was standing. It doesn't matter, Lauren sneered, his confidence returning. He whistled a long, low sound. He's weak. She's a one-trick healer. And I am a strategist. For more shapes detached from the shadows. These were not the thin, desperate rogues from before. These were pack. They were large, wearing leather armor, their eyes cold. Lauren's personal guard. His last resort. You corrupted his own guard? Aurora whispered, horrified. Loyalty is a currency, Lauren said. And I paid them better. Kill them. Kill the alpha first. The 4 armored wolves charged. This was it. The final showdown. The blood moon, high overhead, cast a sick, red light on the clearing. Kael looked at Aurora. Stay behind me. No, she said, her voice calm and absolute. He smiled. Then, beside me. Kael did not shift. He exploded into his true form. He was the massive black alpha wolf, a shadow of fangs and death, and he met the first 2 guards in a clash of sound and fury. But this time Aurora did not hide. The other 2 guards, seeing her as the weaker target, split off and charged her. She did not run. She did not cower. She stood her ground, and her wolf, her new, whole, golden wolf rose to the surface. She didn't shift. She ignited. The golden power that had healed Kael now wreathed her, a visible, shimmering aura of fire. Her eyes burned gold. The first guard lunged. Aurora didn't even lift her hand. She just pushed with her mind. A concussive, invisible blast of pure golden energy hit the guard in midair. It was not a silver healing light. It was a hammer. The wolf yelped, a sound that was cut off as he flew backward and slammed into a tree, his armor cracking. The second guard skidded to a halt, terror in his eyes. She was not a healer. She was not a monster. She was Luna. Across the clearing, Kael was a blur of black fur, fighting his own battle, but he was still weak. One of the guards got past his defense, his claws raking Kael's flank. Kael roared in pain. Aurora turned. She saw Kael and she saw the rogue who had hurt him. Her rage was cold now. It was focused. She pointed to her hand. You, she commanded, her voice echoing with 2 tones, hers and the wolf's. Stop. A beam of golden light shot from her hand and wrapped around the wolf's leg. It was not fire, it was solid. Like a manacle. The wolf tripped. It fell. And Kael, his mate, was on him in an instant. It was over. Kael, in his wolf form, and Aurora, in her human goddess form, turned as one. They faced Lauren. He was alone. No, he whispered, his strategy, his logic, his entire world shattering. She is my Luna, Kael's voice rumbled, a deep growl, even from the wolf. You were right, Lauren, Aurora said, her voice clear, her golden aura lighting the clearing. He was broken. We both were. Kael, the wolf, padded up to stand beside her, his massive head next to her hip. You just forgot, she said, her voice softening as she placed her hand on her mate's head, what happens when you put the two halves back together. Lauren, he tried to run. Kael, he tackled him. It was fast. It was brutal. It was final. The blood moon watched. And it was over. Chapter 23. The Mark of the Moon. The clearing was silent. The red light of the blood moon faded, softening back into the clean, white light of a normal full moon. It shone down on the carnage. Lauren was dead. His guards were dead. Kael shifted. He was human. He was naked, his body a map of old scars and new wounds, his side bleeding from the guard's claws. He was covered in blood and dirt. He looked at her. Aurora's golden aura it faded. It sank back under her skin, leaving her just Aurora. She looked at Lauren's body. And the violence of it all hit her. She trembled. Kael started. His voice was raw. He didn't know what to say. Thank you was too small. I love you was too much, or was it? Aurora, she walked to him. She looked at the new gash on his side. You're bleeding, she whispered. She reached out her hand. But she hesitated. I can't, she whispered. I don't know how. The silver light, it's not gone, Kael said. He took her hand. He pressed it to his wound. You are not just the moon. You are also the sun. He smiled. A small, tired smile. Heal me, my Luna. She closed her eyes. She reached. And both powers answered. A cool silver light and a warm golden light. They twined together. Like two vines. The wounded it stitched itself shut. It left no scar. Oh, she whispered. See, he said. They stood there. In the moonlight. Just breathing. You are my Luna, he said, his voice firm. In every way. Before the goddess. The bond it was strong. But it was incomplete. That first mark. The partial mark. It was a scar. A reminder of pain. And you are my alpha, she whispered, her voice shaking but strong. He lowered his head. To her neck. He breathed in her scent. May I, he asked. Yes, she breathed, tilting her head. He marked her. It was not painful. It was on fire. It was light. The golden power and the silver power flared in both of them. A blinding flash. The bond is locked. It was no longer a chain. It was their blood. When the light faded, she looked at him. He was her alpha. Your turn, she whispered. And for the first time in their pack's history, the Luna marked the alpha. She bit his shoulder, over his heart. Sealing the bond. Making them truly equal. Chapter 24. The Golden Dawn. Weeks later, the sun rose over the mountains. It streamed in, not through the open, broken door of a hunter's trap, but through a clean, open window. The cabin was no longer a prison. It was home. The rough furs were still on the floor, but the small bed was gone. In its place was a large, warm bed, covered in soft linens and thick, warm blankets. Aurora, she woke up. She was tangled in the linens. With him. Kael, he was not on the floor. He was in the bed. He was watching her. The haunted, cold look was gone. His eyes. They were just warm. He smiled. It was the old smile. The one she remembered. But better. Deeper. Good morning, my Luna, he whispered, his voice rough with sleep. Good morning, my alpha, she replied, her voice soft. They stayed there. For a moment. Just being. What about the council? She asked. A small thread of her old fear. The ones who called me Kael's smile widened. He brushed the hair from her face. The council, he said, his voice now full of easy authority, has been reformed. They met the new golden Luna. He chuckled. They are believers now. He explained. That her power. Not just the silver healing, but the golden fire. It was a legend. Made real. She was not just a healer. She was the healer. The Alpha Queen. Aurora, she was no longer afraid. Of her wolf. Of her power. Of her love. She stood on the porch, later that day, looking at the mountains. She was not the girl from the apothecary. She was not the broken harlot. She was a queen. Kael he came up behind her. He wrapped his arms around her waist. He pressed his face into her hair. The bond. It was a quiet, steady warmth. A fireplace, not a bonfire. I love you, he whispered. I loved you then. I love you now. I am so sorry for the 10 years we lost. We didn't lose them, she said, turning in his arms to face him. She placed her hand over his heart. Over her mark. They made us this. You were right. I'm not just a healer. And you're not just a wolf. She smiled. We're ours. He kissed her. Not a desperate, post-battle kiss, but a slow, deep, promising kiss. The two broken souls, reforged by fire and love, finally whole.